Well, good afternoon, y'all. Today I'm going to make biscuits because I really want some. And even though I'm sticking to the vegan challenge, I'm still going to make biscuits. I can make them vegan, and I have some vegan butter that I can use on them. And I think all my jellies are not animal. I question those, so I won't use any jelly, which I love. So I will be eating my biscuits with molasses. And if I had some blackstrap molasses, I'd eat the blackstrap. I really like that. And I won't be using honey because there are a lot of vegans who don't eat honey. Some vegans will, but I'm just going to keep it real strict about, what I eat because I wanted to take the challenge and, to support my daughter. So those are my guidelines. I'm just going to have plant-based butter and molasses. And I think I can suffer through it. Okay, biscuits. I could always make biscuits. They weren't like Ellie Mae's biscuits. They were not hard as bricks or anything like that. And my husband loved biscuits. And I was always trying to perfect my recipe. Now, Petra, and it was not until after he passed away that I started getting better at making biscuits. So, to my dear husband in heaven, I'm sorry I didn't learn to make them better when you were here. So, I'm going to use White Lily self-rising flour, Crisco shortening, and some plant-based almond milk. And a little tad of sugar, to help them brown, and a little salt. And the reason White Lily flour is so good is because the protein content of White Lily flour is 12%. It's a little lower than your other bacon or your other flours. And they also make it from soft winter wheat. Now, when I used to grind my own wheat berries to make my own wheat bread, I liked getting the soft winter wheat. You could get like hard red winter wheat, but I found that the loaves of bread were heavier, and I like the soft winter wheat. I like the way the loaves came out. So let me get started. I'm going to start off with half a cup of Crisco shortening, and I do use the sticks. I mean, when I had a family, husband and 3 kids, I bought shortening in the can. It was cheaper than buying the sticks. But now that it's just me, I get the sticks for convenience. Okay. Gonna add some milk. And if you've ever watched Brenda Gant on Facebook, I kind of take after her making the biscuits. I saw her making biscuits and she just poured everything in there together. And I thought, oh, that's how I want to do it. I don't want to go to all the trouble of measuring and that sort of thing. So I just kind of started mixing them the way she does. Although I did find that I did not want to keep my flour in a bowl because I have a problem with ants around here, and I didn't want ants getting in my flour bowl. So I just do them like this, mix in the shortening and the milk and the flour, and it works out pretty good for me. And I would say I taught my step granddaughter how to make biscuits. Every time she comes down, we make biscuits. The last time she was down, she wondered if she could learn to make something else. I said, well, another good thing to learn would be to make pie crust. A lot of people are afraid of making pie crust. And that is something my mother taught me the summer I turned 11 years old. She taught me to make apple pies. And you know, an apple tree, it lasts, the apples, you know, you have a harvest of maybe between 4 and 6 weeks, I guess, depending on the apple. And so for all the weeks that we had apples on the tree, every day I'd go out, I'd pick the apples, and I'd make the pies. Sometimes I would make 2 pies and take over to the neighbor's house. But my sister makes excellent pies also. And at all the family gatherings, my sister and I were asked to make the pies. And okay, got my dough ready. You don't want to, you know, mix them or knead them too much. Just enough to get them out kind of smooth so you can cut them. And there's a lot of information on the internet about making biscuits. You know, they say don't twist when you cut them with your biscuit cutter, because if you twist, it flattens down the sides and they don't rise as well, and it misshapens them. And I don't think your family really cares when it comes to eating breakfast. Okay. I got messy hands. Let me wash my hands. My mother, when I was interviewing her for a genealogy interview I was doing with her, she was telling me about her grandmother, they had a farm, and my great grandmother every day would make 80 biscuits. Can you imagine getting up in the morning and making 80 biscuits? Now, why did she make 80 biscuits? Well, they had a farm. They had lots of sons, a couple of daughters, and then they had the farm hands. So she would make a big old breakfast, make all those biscuits, and then at the noon dinner, whatever biscuits were left over, they would eat. And then for supper, they would have cornflakes. I mean, she had worked hard all day making all that food. Okay, now, I got my flat skillet here, belonged to my mother. I'm going to cut these biscuits straight down. And a little trick I learned from my husband. You know, I see people cutting out their biscuits and they go right down in the center to get the best biscuit. And my husband said, why don't you just kind of scoop it up under there and just make a biscuit? I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So instead of having to work that dough again, just cut it out the one time. So I took that little tail you get, I tuck it up under there and make my biscuit. And that works out pretty good. Now, my husband, he liked me to make cat head biscuits, which in his mind and most people's minds, it's big biscuits, you know. And so that's what he liked. The bigger, the better. And if you want your biscuits to rise real good, you let the edges of them touch. Okay. Oh yeah, this is going to be delicious. Okay. Now I already got the oven turned on. I got it set on 500. That's what Miss Brenda Gantz says. Cook them on 500 for about 10 minutes, or, you know, according to your oven. A little odd man out there. Okay. Get my hands rinsed off. I use a lot of water. When we went camping, my husband and I got teased all the time because I was the one filling up the camper with water. We were new to camping, and come to find out, it's the men that are supposed to load up the water or keep the water in the camper. But my husband said, she's the one that uses all the water, so she's the one that puts it in. And sometimes I'd have to fill up that tank twice a day because I use so much. All right, I'm going to put these in the oven. All right, let me set my timer for 10 minutes. Okay. Oh, I forgot to put that little dab of sugar in there. Oh well, didn't put any salt in there. They may not taste right. But, you know, self-rising flour has baking powder and baking soda. So that soda ought to make them taste a little salty. But they'll still be fluffy. Okay. Now, as I'm cleaning up my mess, I wanted to talk to you about how I keep my recipes. Over the years, I have collected recipes and kept them in all kinds of containers and all that. And I thought, well, you know, everybody's always looking for a way. So I thought, well, I'll share with you what I do, and you could share how you save your recipes. You might have a better idea than me, or you might like the idea I have. So let me get this cleaned up a little bit. Okay. Usually I get my dishwashing soap, pour a little bit out on the counter, then take my wet rag and get it all cleaned up. But I'm just going to let that pass for right now. I'll do that after I get off this video. Okay. Now, my friend Ramona gave me a 3-ring notebook. It was, I guess, maybe 3 inches. And, you know, so I can put my recipes in there. I started putting them in there and realized that that 3-ring notebook was not going to be big enough. So I went out and bought a 5-inch, and I used the separators, whatever you want to call them. I can't think of a good name right now, but like this one. You know, it's got pretty little designs on it for appetizers and soups and salads. And it had different size plastic covers for some big recipe cards or small ones. And then some blank ones like this. You could put a whole page in there. And then, let's see, let me Oh, now like this one. This is under main dishes. Now I have this recipe for chicken enchiladas with spicy sauce. I got it from Southern Living Annual Cookbook, 1984, page 76. I say it's very good and wrote down the date that I first made it. I think a lot of that has to do with me doing genealogy for so long. I want the reference of, where the recipe came from, and I want the date on there and all. Here's the recipe for Granny's, my mother-in-law, Granny's dressing. She makes excellent dressing. Or, depending on where you are in the country, you may call it stuffing. Down here in Tennessee, it is, in West Tennessee where I am, it is dressing, and it's made with cornbread. And anyway, I like this this way to keep my recipes. And then I went somewhere. I was going to be staying a couple of days, and I wanted to take some recipes with me. And of course, I didn't want to drag along my big old notebook here. So I ended up getting this. Ruled index cards. A little spiral thing up at the top. And I just started writing down some of my favorite recipes. And I numbered the pages. And in the back, let's see. And in the back, my intention was to make an index, and I haven't done that. I just usually end up flipping through it. And my sister and I and Abigail, when we were coming back from New England, we stopped at the cast iron store there in Pittsburgh. Yes, Pittsburgh, Tennessee. At the Lodge store. And they had some little stickers. All you need is a Lodge. So I put that in there. But I have notes. I have some menus planned out. When you plan a menu and all that food just kind of comes together and it's so good, and you're thinking, this is the best meal because it's, you got hot and cold and smooth and crisp and lots of color, and it's just a beautiful meal. And so I like to write those down. Sometimes it doesn't transfer. You can make that same meal again, and it's not quite the same. I guess it's kind of like you're in the mood for certain things. But anyway, this is the little one that I take with me when I go and stay somewhere. Like I stayed with my mother-in-law for several months after she'd had some surgery, and I wanted to have my recipes with me, and this was the perfect thing. Now, this one, my mother put together, and it has her cake recipes. Cakes and, cakes. And this one right here is the strawberry cake recipe. And Mama, I learned to make notes on my recipes, because that's I just read this. This is for a Hampton Polonaise with white fudge frosting. And she says, I cooked this for Christmas 1976. Not worth the time and expense. So when you look at my recipes, I'll say good, very good, not worth it. Or I'll say Brent liked it. Brent loved it. So if my husband loved it or liked it, I always made a note, because then I could make it again. But yeah, so I like having this one. She just took an old address book and put her own collection of cake recipes in here. And this one. Now, I have collected the recipes from the backs of Schlesman yeast. And I don't know if they still do it or not, but you can cut that recipe out of the back. And it's got like a little foil or something on the back of it. And you can iron that recipe onto a card. So I had collected so many over the years. So I put them on these cards, ironed them on there. And so I have a nice collection of bread recipes. A lot of them have the photo of the recipe. And that comes in quite handy. And this one is just a collection of recipes that wouldn't fit in the 3-ring binder. And for my friend Carter, he likes to make jellies. And I told him, I said, I'll give you my pear preserve recipe. And I tell you, I thought I lost it. And I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed because this recipe I've had, let's see, we lived in the duplex from 1981 to 1993. And the landlord, he and his wife had planted pear trees when they first moved on to the place. And after the trees were mature, oh, biscuits are ready. Be right back. All right, there you go. I think I want them to be a little browner. They're fine, but I like them more golden. I'll put them back in there for just a bit. And I better set the timer because I get to talking and forget about what I'm doing. Okay, the pear recipe. So, the landlord had planted pear trees. Then he started selling them. So every fall, little old ladies would come out from town and they would pick bushels of pears and go back and make their pear preserve. So we moved in, and my landlord, he was, a lot older, and he told me, he said, if you'll collect the money for the pears, he said, you can have all the pears you want. And I thought, well, that sounds like a good deal to me. So I would collect the money for the bushels. And I don't know how much a bushel they are now, but back then they were $9 a bushel. And the little old ladies, they had been coming out for years. And so, who knows better than someone who's been making something for a long time? So I started asking every lady that came out there, how do you make your pear preserves? And they would tell me their stories, and of course they would always ask, aren't you afraid living out here? Because it was out in the country and everything. I said, no ma'am, it's not. I grew up out here. It's not scary to me. But anyway, so I learned to make pear preserves and pear honey. But I will say, the first time I ever made pear preserves, I cooked them too long. And if you have ever made pear preserves, you know what I'm talking about. They were a beautiful color, but they were too dark. And I had them in quart jars. There's the biscuits. I'll be right back. All right. Let me break one of these things open. Oh, man, it's hot. Woo! Yeah. Oh, there you go. All right, let me put them back over here. All righty, back to the pear preserve. I had cooked them for so long in those quart jars, they were permanently stuck in there. I had to throw the pear preserves away, jar and all. I could turn them upside down. I could have left them upside down all day. They never would have come out. All that work and effort, and I had to throw it away. But I learned. I learned my lesson. So, yes, pear preserves, and I like mine with the lemon rind in them. I really like that. And you don't just find pear preserves just anywhere. So if somebody ever gives you pear preserves, give them a big hug and a kiss and tell them thank you. All right, the last thing is my mother's recipe box. This wooden box here. She bought this after she retired. She retired in 1984. And she bought this box to put her recipes in and get them all organized and everything. I think I have a few of my recipes in here, but mostly they're all Mama's recipes. And I'll have to, I guess over a period of time, share some of my recipes that I've used for years. And, people always coming up with something new. And there's one thing I'd like to say. People make fun of people from the South that they fry everything, and they don't have much variety in their diet and that sort of thing. And I have to say that that's really not true. Of course, there's nothing like having a pot of greens with some fat back in there and the flavor's good and everything, but fried chicken and macaroni and cheese and all that. But we have other things we cook. We're, very progressive. You can go to most any nice restaurant in the town I live, and there's all kinds of foods to eat. Anything that you'd find anywhere else in the country. We're not backward. And of course, I've mentioned the young man from the UK. He watches a lot of American videos or videos about America. And, they describe America as, everybody eats fast food and, that sort of thing. But there are a wide variety of cuisines in America, including the South. You have people from all over the world who come to live somewhere, and they miss their country, they miss their food, and so some of them decide to start restaurants. So even in the town that I live, there's Thai, there's Vietnamese, you can find African food. I can't think now, but I mean, there's food from all over the world. So you need to have that notion that Southerners don't know much about food. I'd have to say that's just not correct. So y'all have a good afternoon or good evening, whatever you're doing. I hope you've had something good to eat. Maybe I threw a hankering on you to have some biscuits. And I hope that you will be kind to somebody. Everybody needs a little kindness in their life, and it doesn't take much of anything for you to be kind to somebody. Even a smile. A smile can be nice, and to say kind words. So, y'all enjoy the rest of your time that you're awake, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.